The new Congress will be sworn in tomorrow. Republicans will have a larger majority in the Senate, while Democrats will control the House for the first time in 8 years. New York Congressman Jerrold Nadler will become chairman of the Judiciary Committee, which has the power to subpoena witnesses and documents to investigate President Trump and his administration. Congressman Nadler, good morning and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
So we know that we are now in day 12 of the shutdown. What's the plan that the Democrats are going to present to the president?
Well, you know, the budget of the United States consists of 12 bills, 5 of which have been passed into law. There are 6 more that are totally agreed upon that the Senate passed almost unanimously. So our plan is to pass those 6 bills and send it back to the Senate and pass, for the one remaining Department of Homeland Security, pass a continuing resolution to fund it through February 8th so there can be more negotiations. But this shutdown that President Trump has initiated proudly, he claimed it, is really blackmail of the American people because he is feeling abandoned. He's been abandoned first by the voters, the historical 9 million majority for Democratic candidates for Congress a couple months ago. He's being abandoned by his own Secretary of Defense, by his Chief of Staff, by his former campaign manager.
Well, he was abandoned by his own party. He did control, the Republicans did control the House in the last. But let's talk about this.
But these are people who have left him, who are testifying against him. And whenever he feels beleaguered, he returns to his base. So what this shutdown is an extremist policy designed to appeal to an extremist base and hold the whole country hostage.
So if you can separate those bills, have the Department of Homeland Security one, which will include the fight over, of course, the border wall funding, do you think that the president will sign that and this shutdown could be over for all those other agencies by Thursday?
Well, he certainly should. He has said in the last day or so, or I think his spokesman has said they wouldn't. But remember, the Senate, the Republican Senate passed those 6 bills unanimously, or almost unanimously, a few weeks ago. We'll take the Senate bill, we'll pass it again, and hopefully they'll pass it, and the president should sign it, unless he simply wants to deliberately create an artificial shutdown of a good part of the government in which this wall controversy has nothing to do with, just in order to blackmail the American people.
Is there any budge on the Democrat side on a border wall?
Not really at this point.
That suggests there might be at another point.
I don't know that. I don't know that.
The Department of Homeland Security.
The fact of the matter is the border wall is a purposeless thing. We're certainly willing to talk about border security. And the fact of the matter is that people crossing the border are way down this year and last year than previous years. The challenge we have is not people crossing the border that way. It's people who want political asylum. And a wall can't help that because they want to walk up and present themselves to the first agent and say, I want political asylum. So the wall has nothing to do with the problem that we have.
You've had a second child die at the border. It certainly has escalated the blame game. How do you fix that? Because that is really the crux to the problem here. These two sides not being able to sit down with one another.
Well, it's not a question of the two sides not being able to sit down. It's a question of inhuman policies being followed by the Trump administration to try to, as was said by several of their spokespeople, including former Chief of Staff Kelly, to deter people from coming to the border and claiming political asylum based on violence or whatever. And in order to do that, we'll make them as miserable as possible. And unfortunately, that means that kids die. And we're certainly going to have hearings in the Judiciary Committee and subpoena witnesses and documents if necessary. We've asked for all relevant documents as to why kids are dying in custody of DHS, why families are being detained. What about the policy of family separation? You still have kids who haven't been returned to their parents after months. This is inhuman, and it's not precedented. It's a deliberate creation of the Trump administration, which is trying to make things as miserable as possible. And if kids die, they're apparently willing to have that.
Do you, you have a long and very contentious history with this president. He once called you one of the most egregious hacks in contemporary politics.
I regard that as a badge of honor.
You are about to take over the Judiciary Committee, and you've said that impeachment hearings are something that you only resort to in the most extreme circumstances. In your view, what are those circumstances?
Well, impeachment is designed as a defense of the republic against a president who would aggrandize power, destroy liberty, destroy democratic institutions, destroy the separation of powers. If that happens, if you get real evidence of that, then you have to consider impeachment hearings. But we will wait and see what, and there's certainly a lot of allegations, but we'll have to wait and see what the Mueller investigation comes up with, and other investigations are looking into it. But we're also going to be, for the last 2 years, the president has had no oversight and no accountability from Congress. The Republican Congress was completely derelict in its responsibility to provide oversight. We are going to provide that oversight. We're going to use the subpoena power if we have to. We will call in Mr. Whitaker, for instance. We'll have to protect the Mueller investigation and pass that legislation. We'll call in Mr. Whitaker, who's agreed to come in, although he can't seem to find a date. And we'll subpoena him if necessary, and we'll ask questions about...
Is that job one for you when you take over the committee?
Well, it's one of two jobs. First job is to pass H.R. 1, which is the democratization bill to guarantee free elections, deal with gerrymandering, deal with campaign finance, so people can't buy elections, so people feel that the elections are proper and that they control them, not plutocrats.
We've got to go, Congressman, but thank you, Jerry Nadler. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
You're quite welcome.